All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Kitchen Table where business gets done. I'm your host, Ken Baden, and today we have another Ken in the house. Ken, how are you doing, my friend?
Man, I'm doing wonderful. Great to be here.
I almost said Ken Baden, but you're not a Baden, but you are a Ken. But our pleasure is all mine to have a fellow Ken in the house. And we have your book that you're, here to in part talk about, which is Becoming Ken, which is also ironic because I'm a Ken. So any other time, if you're talking about that, they're like, oh, okay, that's cool. But before we get into the book, I would love to talk about. We have a lot of similarities, don't we?
hmm Yes, we do.
And you were just saying and normally we would have some cool stuff to share, like, oh, we have a lot of similarities. Where in this case, both of us are felons that have turned our lives around and done some amazing things. I believe you said you're a three-time felon,
Yes, I am.
and isn't that cool, man, to be able to say that? Like, I don't know, and I almost with a sense of pride, not in that we're felons, but like
Yeah.
what like what it takes to come back from that and become because a lot of people think that's a death sentence. Would you agree?
It could be. You can strike out, and I was very close to striking out. My next felony, I was getting what they call the habitual criminal statute, which would have been 25 to life on my next felony. But I haven't had that next one and will not have that next one. So, yeah, it's very interesting how you said that it's not something so much to be proud of, but I can talk the talk, because I've walked the walk.
Yeah.
I've done the yard, okay, in many years. So I've been there, I've done that, but I've moved on. And that's the important part is that I
Right.
think we both have moved on.
Exactly. I mean, that's the thing. It's like we're not, by no means are we no one's saying that's cool or
Mhm.
that, we're proud of
Mhm.
that. What we're proud of is the fact that, a lot of any of the folks I know that are friends of mine are like, oh, I'm a felon. I can't get a good job. I can't do. Well, I don't know that I'd agree with that, man. Yeah, it's harder, but then you just work harder, right? Like what I found is, there wasn't a ton of stuff outside of owning a gun or voting that, I was strictly prohibited,
Mhm.
and I couldn't just work a little harder to do. If I wanted a job and I had to check that box, I still hate that, But it's like, you know what, man? Okay, I'm gonna need to get in front of this person, right? Because if I just check this box, they're probably just gonna toss this out. So I need to be smart enough to know that I need to get in front of this person and show them who I am now. And it's taking that extra step, not just checking the box and going away, but like being a fighter enough to say, like, well, hold on, I know I checked that box, but I'd really love to meet with you in person and show you why I'm not that person today. And the investment made in me would be a solid one. And I think that that's the ticket. But that's what I did. I'd love to hear more about Ken, what you did. So, you know, take us back if you would please, man. Just kind of a little bit about your story and kind of how we're here. Because I know it didn't start here. This looks great, but it didn't start here, did it?
No, it didn't. No, it didn't. The real short version is that I was a foster child, did 6 years in the foster care system, got adopted when I was six, moved to Alaska when I was 12 years old. I did very, very well academically. I was a National Merit Scholar. I was accepted to Harvard. I went to Dartmouth, Ivy League, got my degree. But unfortunately, I came out with I tell people I majored in fraternity and I minored in drinking. That's what I did at college and got out, but went into the corporate world, did really well in the corporate world for a couple of years. Then I relapsed because I was sober when I got out. I went to my first treatment and ended up doing 20 years on and off the streets and in prison. And then in 2007, when I was released for the third time, I had to make some, hard decisions. I made them. And since then, I now own five businesses. I've been very successful. I mentor men all over the country. I speak all over the country. I'm an author. I'm an entrepreneur. I have staff. I have, clients. I have contractors that work for me. And now my main thing is this giving back. That's what I really want to do is give back. So, you could say I started low, went up, then went back down, and now I'm back up. And I'm very, very comfortable in my shoes.
Wow. I mean, that's a very similar story, and I know you already knew that, but I have the same
Mhm.
addiction. College, not quite as prestigious as yourself. It's that's amazing when you think about like where how sought after you were and how well you did
Mhm.
academically, and then people just hear three-time felon or even felon at all, and they're like, oh, this guy. They just dismiss, what is. Well, hold on, man. Like I was accepted to Harvard. I went to. You said you went to. I always pronounce it wrong. Is it Dartmouth or Dartmouth? I can't remember.
Dartmouth, Dartmouth.
Dartmouth. Yeah, I
Yeah,
pronounced it Dartmouth one time, and my
yeah.
my
People
professor
look at you.
in college. Oh, he laughed, and it made me so angry. And now I always have a complex about saying the wrong one, Dartmouth or Dartmouth, and I always say the wrong one. Oh, 20 years later, I'm saying the wrong one still. But it's a very prestigious Ivy League school, and you went there. So, uh, but then you went back down, right? Like you're like myself in that like most of what I had happen was post college. So like I went and got the degree, and then I got a felony. So I'm like, well, that's kind of I feel like one kind of negates the other in a sense, but I'm really looking to build. I'm actually writing my first book, man, right now. I just
Awesome.
started, and I promised my
Awesome.
daughter, who's not born yet. I said I would do it, and I said I would do it before she was born. I don't care if one person reads it, or 100 people, or a million people,
Mhm.
but I said I'd do it. So I love what you're doing, man. And you said you're an entrepreneur. Would
Mhm.
you take us through some of your
Sure,
businesses?
sure. So when I first got out of prison in 2007, I could not get a job. And what I mean is I could not. It was very, very difficult to get a job because we had the great financial crisis, GFC, we call it. And all I could get was a warehouse job part time, literally in Reno, Nevada. And then I moved back to Anchorage, Alaska. And the beautiful thing about Alaska is they will give individuals a chance because they're always looking for good employees. So I was given an opportunity there to go into fundraising and what we call a development director for a soup kitchen. Did that. And then within about 3 years, I went out on my own as a consultant. I did very, very well as a development director, as a fundraiser. I've told people this. I've been in sales my whole life, legal and illegal, but I've been in sales. So I can sell anything and I can. And so I was selling something that was beautiful, which is supporting a soup kitchen and shelter versus doing the things I did on the street, but I can sell. So I did that, became a consultant, started my first company on April Fool's Day 2014, which was called Denali FSP,
Mm.
fundraising and service provider, and I've had that company now for 11 years. What we predominantly do is we write large federal grants for tribes across the country. My
Oh
wife's
wow.
Alaska Native, and so she's been doing it for 25 years. I've been doing it now for about 15 years, been writing grants, but we put our company together. And so I've had that one for about 11 years. Then I started a company called Evolution, and what I have is offshore virtual assistants in Ecuador and in the Philippines that work for my company that are trained, and I mean trained in artificial intelligence. I'm
Wow.
really big in artificial intelligence. Then I have a company that speaks. Ken Miller Speaks. You can see it up in the upper right hand corner. And that's my company that does all my speaking engagements. And I speak on a lot of stages across the country. Then I have a book called Becoming Ken book.com, and that is my authorship. And so I have books that I write. I have one book out. I have three more in the process that I'm writing this year and will have done three
Wow.
more this year. And then I also have rental property in Ecuador. I have a beautiful home down there and condos that I rent out. And so I have a rental company in Ecuador. So I have five businesses and I run them and I run them well. And I love it. Keeps me busy though. Remember when I came on the call?
Yeah, 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 yeah. I
Now you
love
know
it,
why.
man. Yes, sir. Yeah, five businesses. I can imagine, man. So you have two more books that you're currently writing that
Mhm.
you will have finished by the end of the year. That's amazing. Can you tell us maybe what they're
Sure.
about or no?
Oh, I'd love to. I'd love
Okay.
to. And this may resonate with you. So I tell people all the time from the stage and individually, and I do a lot of mentorship of especially young Black men. And I said the most important word in our community, I'm talking about I hate to say it, the male gang or even the male community, is a word, and the book is on respect.
Hmm.
Exactly what it's on: respect and disrespect. What you see in the newspaper is that individuals are killed over women, drugs, or money. It isn't. It's because you disrespected them. That was just the vehicle that you used to disrespect them. And that's why, and I go into, and I talk about the boardroom because I've been on a lot of boards, national and local, but I've been in the corporate world and in the business world now for almost 15 years at a high level. And there's disrespect in the boardroom, there's disrespect in the corporate world, and there's disrespect in the streets. How we handle it may be a little differently than we do in the prison or on the streets, but it's all about respect. So I'm doing a book on respect. And then I'm also doing a book on fundraising because that's what I'm an expert in, or subject matter expert, which is in fundraising. So I'm going to do one on what I would call pragmatic or practical fundraising or fundraising, guerrilla fundraising. And I want to talk about what's real. I'm not a academic type of person. I'm about what works. So that's the book number two. And then I'm going to do a third book that's going to be more on ethics and morals
Mm.
around mentorship. And especially, and it's predominantly going to be on mentorship. And what does that really mean? What does it mean to be a good mentor? How do you mentor? How do you find a mentor? How do you create that relationship? But it's going to be on mentoring, and especially the moral and ethical aspects of mentoring. I've been doing that for 15 years. I teach it, and now I'm going to write a book on mentorship also.
Wow. I love that. I have a couple rock solid mentors that I worked,
Mhm.
I consider pretty hard to get, man. These are men that didn't
Mhm.
have to take, and I don't, the two that I have currently, I don't even, the oldest two that I have, I've paid so many coaches, but my
Yeah.
actual like two mentors here, I don't pay anything, and they are business owners personally that now I've paid since plenty of people, and I would happily do it, especially if, let's be real, like I know that they're where I want to be. I mean, hey, and now I can ask for your time pretty politely if I'm paying for it. Whereas like my other two mentors, I'm not, and so anything I can get from them, I'm so thankful. But they were my original two before I really had it to be able to pay, right? And because I had two mentors that were kind enough to give me their time in this industry, and now I'll do the same for others. I'm able to pay coaches and other folks
Mhm.
that I can help get me from A to Z faster than I otherwise would myself. Because that's really, in business anyhow, like having that, like there's a lot of things too, like they help certainly, try and prevent you from having to experience the pain of the failures and the issues that they've had to already experience. You'd think that that would help you prevent most of those. Some of them you just have to still feel on your own, but still, at least you can use their experience to try to, minimize that. But then two, get to Z from A to Z faster than you otherwise would on your own. That's the real huge benefit in my opinion. But a mentor is just such a powerful tool, man, and I think that's the biggest thing I would say for me that for investing in people and mentorship and coaching, like, and you can get. I love that you're doing ethics on it. And I don't know if you're talking paid mentorship or paid coaching. Okay,
Yeah.
that makes me happy because to me that is mentorship. Mentorship is precisely that. Coaching, sure, I'm paying you, etc. But like my
Yeah.
mentors, I don't pay. They are just at the kindness of their heart uh, and the desire to mentor because they had been mentored by other successful men, and they
Mhm.
want to reciprocate. And they told me the same thing. Hey, man, you're the owner of this huge company mentored me, or the CEO of this huge company mentored me, so I can mentor you, and I'm happy to do it. You just got to ask sometimes, and a lot of times that's what it is. You just got to ask. Isn't that crazy? But if you're afraid to
Yeah.
ask, I love that, man. I'm gonna have to get that book. Please let me know when it comes out. I'm
Oh,
gonna
for
snap that
sure.
up.
For sure. For sure.
So, as busy as you are, you're getting ready to finish up 3 books, one
Mhm.
on a topic I'm really interested in. I also actually was really digging the respect thing.
Mhm.
I gotta be honest. I'd love for you to kind of elaborate a little more, even though you already
Sure.
did. So, but if you could, man, I really love because the parallels are there and people could resonate like across the board, streets, home, work. There's all this. There's it's about respect or disrespect, and we have to deal with it in a different way. Sometimes I've told Roger's heard me say this. There's been a few times where I'm like, man, I'd really like to solve this problem differently because I felt disrespected. You know what I mean? And I'm like, there is a time and a person that you're tapping into that like doesn't do me any good. You know what I mean? It's only going to get me in trouble. But man, if you knew me 15 years, you know what I mean? Like, and that's whatever. I'm just saying sometimes I'd like to handle things differently, and I cannot do that because that's only going to get me back in jail. But I'd love for
Right.
you to elaborate on that and just kind of give us something about. I don't know. I'm really interested in the subject. I'd love for you to elaborate if you could.
Oh, I'd love to. It's one of my favorite things to talk about
Because you've
is
been in the real
respect.
deal. Look, I was locked up for over a year, but I never went, I never, we had a yard, but it wasn't like, maximum security prison. It was maximum security county. That is a very different
Oh no,
deal. So
that's
like
yeah.
you were in prison,
Yep,
you know,
for years. Yep,
for years and years and years. And
medium
I was facing
custody.
that,
Mhm.
but I know what's in there. You know what I mean? A lot of my cell
Mhm.
buddies and stuff. Anyhow, bottom line is I know the difference, and a lot of people don't, but I do. And so, like, I know what you were up against. I mean, you were literally watching your own back every single day, and in there, it's all respect. That's all it is. All it is respect, respect or disrespect. You can't just you call somebody out their name, you call somebody a B. You have to do something about that. Now there is no like, oh, well, let's talk about no, man. Like, you have now created a situation where now we have to fight, or else it's a bigger problem, right? Like that's the consequence of your. You learn real quick not to disrespect somebody unless you're really ready to like live or die over it. And I'd love to hear you elaborate on that. I'm sorry, I just really am passionate about
No
this.
problem. I haven't talking this in a while, but so we have to understand what respect is. Respect is acknowledgement of a person's position or stature within a community. Let's look at that definition. Acknowledgement of a person's position or stature within a community. So prison is a community. I call it the streets. The streets, and I'm talking about the criminal world on the streets, is a community. Your home is a community. Alaska Native Village is a community. So they have a thing, what we call tremendous respect for elders in a Alaska Native village. Okay, because they've earned that position or stature within that Alaska village, rural village. Okay, and we're talking about this indigenous communities, tribal communities. So what disrespect is, you did not acknowledge, I am a drug dealer that has a reputation on the street. So if you steal from me, you are not acknowledging my position as a drug, because I have a reputation. So that's one aspect. Same thing in the prison. So one of the most important things I had to do, Kenneth, was this. I had to take away the power of words. So it's very well known in the prison system throughout the United States. You can't call another man a punk or a B. Okay, and you know what the B is.
Yep.
Okay, you can't call me an N. Okay, as a
Mm-hmm.
white person. Okay, that's disrespect across racial lines, which is a no-no period anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But a black man, if he called me a B, it's on.
Mm-hmm.
The consequences are very simple, though. You don't have to fight, but you're either going to give a
Yeah.
commissary,
Yeah.
you're going to clean my cell, or you're going to provide services to me. You made the agreement. You didn't fight. Now, if you fight and lose, it's cool. I can respect that.
Yeah.
Okay? And I probably won't even trip on you again. Because at least you fought. Yeah, you lost. I put you in the infirmary, but you are man enough to do that. Another aspect of respect, which, and really disrespect, which is so important, is that you can do things if nobody sees it. But if my homeboys or my people see you say this or do this,
Mhm.
then we got a problem because they're watching me and what they're saying. Can I trust him? Because we're in an environment, prison, streets. And again, these are worlds. This is that community. So I've been in, because we did everything out of motel rooms when I was on the streets. And if we were just alone and you start talking, we used to call talking out the side of your neck to me, you're one on one. Hey man, just pipe that down. Don't even need to go there. We'll just talk about it. But if I got other people in the room
Yeah.
and you start talking crazy, I went to kill a man over just talking crazy. Tried to throw him off the third floor of the motel, the Fireside Inn on 4th in Lake in Reno, Nevada. I had him halfway over. And the only reason he didn't get thrown over is that the people in the room came and grabbed me because it would have brought heat onto the room. They didn't
Yeah.
want the heat on the room. They didn't like him either. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Talk crazy. But anyway, it's so let me tell you one other story on this disrespect and respect. When I got out the penitentiary, I didn't know I had this problem, but somebody called me a B because they don't know. They don't know the
Right.
rules. They don't know the rules. But remember, what happens is, Ken, we have a script that we have to play out because that's inbred in us over time. And so, individual called me a B, and I went to hit that individual. And that individual was my wife.
Mm.
And I've never laid hands on my wife. And I never forget, I went to hit her and I spun around, tears, because I couldn't believe
Right.
it was so ingrained, that script. She didn't know.
No.
You're just a little B. She didn't know. So anyway, I worked on that for a couple of years.
Yeah.
You could call me a B, a P, a N. I got no problem. I would not even literally blink. I'd look at you like, why?
Right. Wow.
I've taken away the power of words, but I worked on that for 2 years after I got out of the penitentiary, literally going to counseling, talking to my mentor, and then I go deep. I do research, trying to understand why does that make me feel so less than? What am I so afraid of?
Mm.
Because again, if you allow another man to disrespect you in certain communities, people think that you become prey. And number two, they don't believe they can trust you when things get tough. Okay? Whether it's the police or another gang or another individual that you're having beef with, they can't trust you because you let that boy call you that.
Yep.
And that gets ingrained. And I
Yep.
was the same way. If I saw you get disrespected and you let it slide, I just chalk that up. Okay.
Yep.
He's not part of my crew. Okay. So,
I love this, man. I could talk to him all day, man.
well, I could talk about this all day. There's more to respect than disrespect, as you know.
Yeah, I just, it's just the parallels, man. Most people just don't understand it to that level. Some people, it's ironic, man. You know, having been in both I hurt my shoulder at the gym the other day. So you see me keep fidgeting. It's because it's been bothering the heck out of me. I got all kinds of work done and peptides and everything else. And man, it's almost better, but I tell you what, it's hell getting old, man.
Hey, I used to have a jailhouse swell. I used to power lift.
Oh, yeah?
Yep, in the penitentiary. I pulled at 198. I pulled the 519 deadlift,
Oh, wow.
which is very good, believe me.
Yeah, hell yeah. It's a lot
Okay,
of
that's
weight.
drug free. I was in the penitentiary. We had competition weights, had the lights, had the referees and the umpire. Yeah, I competed. I came in second, strongman.
All natural too, huh?
All natural. Well, we had creatine, and we had a
Right.
little protein that we could get from the commissary. That's it.
Right. That ain't. Or some peanut butter, right? Some eggs. Yeah. Man, I just don't think people get it. They don't get it. And so I'd love, so that dynamic to tell me how it transcends to business, like how you took that and really made that into the application and the person that you are now.
Well,
Or do you
in the
think it
beginning, I
helped? I
didn't.
mean,
I didn't. And
okay.
that's one of the difficulties is in that transition. Some individuals, so this is, I think there's like three groups of inmates coming out of prison. There's one group, because the first two times I came out of prison, I didn't want to become a civilian. We call them civilians. I didn't want to be a civilian. I wanted to be a better drug dealer, right? Which is hard when you do drugs. It's real difficult. Okay.
Yes, it is.
It is,
Almost
believe
impossible.
it is impossible. So, and then there's a group that want to do well, but don't know how. I mean, I'm talking about want to do well as a civilian and want to do. Okay. And then there's the third group that could care less either way. They just go as a win. And I was in that second group. I wanted to do well, but I didn't know what I didn't know. Okay. So once I got back into, because I had been out of the corporate world for 20, 30 years. Once I got back out of there and I, wearing a suit and tie and looking at me, you think you would not have, I have no tats. You have no clue that I've ever been down. I don't articulate like someone who's spent years behind bars and 20 years on the streets selling anything that can be sold. So when individuals are dealing with me, one of the difficulties is I pick up a perceived slight as a disrespect. Okay. You said something in the board meeting that made me less than, or made me feel less than, or people looking at me like I'm less than. Okay. Or you criticize me in front of everybody. That's a big no-no. Okay. And I learned this as a leader. I never criticize people in front of others. I do that one-on-one, but I praise people in front of it. Again, that's leadership one-on-one. But I didn't know that, but I've had leaders or bosses who did not know that rule. Not even rule, but best practice, we'll call it.
Right.
So anyway, you go into these corporate worlds, and people say or do something, and I'm now, or even like to say the last 5 or 6 years, I just smile and I say to myself, man, I will beat your butt. If this is the old me. If you just don't know. But then also when I first got out, I struggled. And Kenneth, I want to make sure people understand I didn't come out this sweet, innocent, angel. I struggled. I had two situations where I was going back to the penitentiary on a violation because I was going to hurt somebody. I was going to hurt. I told the guy right to his face, stand up. I will beat your PB, PAB, and no, PBA. I love all these acronyms.
Yeah.
And he didn't stand up because he could see the look in my eyes. Yeah. And I'd have hit him because I don't fight fair. I don't. Anybody talks about say they fight fair, Marcus, the Queensberry rules. And there's nothing to be, again, I'm not saying I'm a brag or anything. And again, I left that situation and went into my office. I was working in the warehouse, but I had an office that I shared with this guy. Tears flowing because I could not believe this young man's words put me back. Because remember, they're playing by different rules.
Yes.
The civilians are playing by different rules. But this is the key thing. No matter if you're in the penitentiary, and I'm telling you, and you brought it up, in the penitentiary, in a lot of ways, it's beautiful because you know where every man stands. And in truth, we are very respectful. We're respectful when we use the restroom. We're respectful when we're in communications with others. We're respectful, when we're playing dominoes or pinochle. we are respectful because we know what the consequences are. We're all in the same place. Okay. You can't dress any better than me. You can't, we're bling. You don't have a nice ride. You don't have a girlfriend, on the yard. Well, you might, but that's
You
story.
might have one. I was gonna
Right.
say you might.
I didn't. Okay. Saying. And so how are you going to talk crazy to me? Anyway, so we are. So I did I never got into any, I came close in prison, but I never got into any altercations. I haven't had an altercation since I got cleaned up. So I'm coming up on 21 years without, we call
Wow.
it putting hands on someone, because I used to put hands on people.
Right.
Okay.
21 years sober, is that what you said, or 21
Yeah,
years?
coming up. Yeah, coming up on 21. So I
Wow.
went down September 22nd, 2004. And I've been clean and sober 100% from all mind altering chemicals volitionally. It means, and it's weird because I tell people I've been high. Yeah, when I came out, when I got my Achilles tendon snapped,
Mm-hmm.
when I got operated on, I came out, but I tell the doctor, the pain relievers, because I've had 3 operations since then. I tell them, I am a drug addict. And then I allow someone else to control the drugs, and I try to get off as quick as I can. And I do usually 2 days of, Tylenol threes or a Vicodin, and then it's cool, aspirin or nothing. And you're a lifter, I'm a lifter. Okay, I just came from the gym, and I'm used to pain. I'm just physically comfortable with physical pain. It's not a
Yeah.
big thing because I lift, and it's pain when I lift. Okay, so.
Yeah, that's ah man, like I said, I could talk to you all day, man, but
Mhm.
I'm trying to focus on business because I'm not I
Right.
want to talk about all the jail stuff, but you know what I
Mhm.
mean? But getting back to anyone that's listening, that target demo certainly is people that are in business. It's just I tell you what, man, I had a lot of fun stories and stuff. We'll have to do that for another day,
Mhm.
but
Yeah, no
because
problem.
not everybody can always understand that. But at any rate, that's what makes you such a unique, because you're right, you don't articulate that way, you don't look that way, you don't talk that way, but I can tell as soon as you start to talk, you can tell that that's there, right? But that you've worked so much, and but I don't think that I was like that before. You know what I mean? Like, we know where and when and how to articulate and how to present ourselves in a position where. But I take that as I take that as a sign of what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to articulate like I am somebody who's the stereotypical prison guy or something, right? Like, I want to be
Mhm.
able to present myself as a business person, and I think that because we were able to do that, we were able to have success. But I don't think that just because you can't do that doesn't mean you can't learn to do that. So if you're listening to this and you're somebody who
Mhm.
has had some hardships, or somebody who's, struggled. I'm sober 8 years in August, right? So I'm a month behind you, but a lot of years, 8 years in
Mhm.
August. And, I didn't present like that. Nobody would have probably given me a job when I first came around. But, before that, and certainly after, um, it was the work I was willing to put in. What, piece of advice, I'm sorry, were you going to say something to that effect?
No, 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 no. I was just clearing my throat.
What piece of advice would you give the young generation, especially ones that don't have the money and don't come from money and don't have the opportunities, but are looking to get into, entrepreneurship, and,
Mhm.
just don't know where to start, and what's, some advice you may give some of them, and how to maybe make that happen even without that capital or those opportunities?
Oh, a lot of advice. So let me just talk about mentorship real
I was
quick
getting
because
ready to say,
really,
sounds like
yeah,
mentorship right there,
mentorship.
baby.
So I started mentoring in 2010. So I've been mentoring for 15 years. I've probably mentored over 60 men, and we call it explicit mentoring, explicit contract mentoring. So
Mm-hmm.
first of all, mentoring is free, 100%. There is never pay in mentoring. Coaching is a fee-based service
Mm-hmm.
provided by someone with expertise or knowledge or even emotional support that you pay for. But mentoring is always free.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we get that out of the way. I've been mentoring predominantly Black men for this 15 years. I have, and mentoring again, for me and how I do mentoring, it's open-ended. My first mentee is still my mentee. We meet quarterly for 15 years. We've been
Wow.
meeting. He was in college. Now he's a CFO. I mean, he went to Oxford, got an MBA and an MED.
Wow.
I said, man, I'll be working for you one day. I remember when you were just a freshman in college. Okay. And you asked me, Mr. Miller, could you mentor me? Yeah, I remember that. And he's doing super successful. So,
Yeah, it
but
sounds like
the
a
key thing
superstar.
is, this is the key thing I would start with. Every man I've mentored, every single one has been 60 plus. At one time, I was mentoring 28 at a time, but it became too much. Now I'm down to 10 guys. I always start with one question. What is your dream?
Mm.
And then you know what I say to him, Kenneth? I give you permission to dream. I'm going to drink my coffee. I'm going to eat my meal. I used to always do them in person because that's why I first started off. But now they're all over the country, all over the
Right.
country. And, we're on a Zoom meeting. And I said, hey, take your time. That's another thing I really teach people is to take their time to think.
Hmm.
We always think we have to be extemporaneous and speak as soon as you hear the question. No, you do not. Okay. So once we've identified, and then why do you say to a grown man, because my guys are all between the ages of like 20 to 50, 55. Okay. I'm 62. And you say, why do you give them permission to dream? Because people have taken away permission for them to dream. Their parents, their siblings, their friends, their teachers. Oh, you can't do that. Why would you even think you have that opportunity to be that? They've
Hmm.
taken away that. And you get ingrained and you have a script that says, I cannot. And so and every man I've ever worked with. So the first thing I always start, we start with the dream. And then I say, I will help you in 3 ways. One, I will give you information. I'll provide information that will be advantageous to your success in your dream. And I always start them off with the same 2 books, the Six Pillars of Self-Esteem by
Mhm.
Nathaniel Branden and The Speed of Trust by Stephen Covey. Every person I've worked with reads those 2 books first. Then I'll look at a specific book for wherever they're at. So anyway, I will give you information. I'll give you podcasts. Just check this out because you need to get this information intellectually to get an understanding of success and how important both self-esteem and trust are. I could talk about trust for an hour. That's another subject for another day. But then after that, I say I will introduce you to people. So all of the guys I've worked with, yeah, pretty much can say, let's say 90%. I see at conferences or I will meet or I will introduce them because I know a lot of people, introduce them to people that could be advantageous to their growth and their success. And
Mhm.
number 3, and probably the most important, is I support men emotionally. I tell
Mhm.
them, until you trust me, and each person is different, but in the end, I hear everything. I hear everything because you have a safe place that you can talk about anything because I've done everything. I've
Mhm.
done everything. Okay. So let's talk about it. And because of one of the things I teach on is taking away the power of the secret, taking away the power. So let's talk about that. If you had an issue with your wife, let's talk about it. You had an issue with your boss, let's talk about that. How do you feel? And every single meeting, I have a meeting every quarter, but you can always call me in between. If I can pick up, I'll pick up. If I can't, I can't, but I'll get back with you within 24 hours.
Mhm.
That you know. But every meeting, we start off the same thing. Tell me about a win. We always start off with a win. And then we usually will talk for probably a half hour about something that is significant for them. And then the last half hour, every single man I work with, we talk about a theme that quarter. Like our theme coming up is on fathers. We're talking
Mm.
about dads and talking about fathers because In our community, and I don't want to make you feel like you're different or anything, but in our community, the Black male community, we have a real difficulty with fathers.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I mean, Roger's over here. He's he agrees 100%. So
Mhm.
Roger's
Yeah.
still sitting over here, and so I and trust
No
me, I
problem.
don't take any offense or anything.
Mhm.
I think that's I can't speak to it, but I certainly I respect and it doesn't give me any offense at all, man. I don't feel different at all. But he's over here. You can't hear him. He's like, yes. So he
Well, we know about our pops. I was a bad father. Okay, let's just be frank. I left my wife, my first wife. I left her.
I
Okay,
have
with the baby,
mm,
but that was what I did. One thing, let me say one other thing. I am so cool with what I've done. I've made amends to every
yeah,
human being I possibly could. There was a few I couldn't. The courts won't allow me to make amends to
yeah.
some. They're victims. They're victims. But everyone I could, I've made amends to, and I'm comfortable because I also know I'm not that person. I became Ken. I didn't become felon. I didn't become convict. I didn't become criminal. I didn't become less than. That's what I was, and that's how I identify. I identify as Ken. I say this all the time. I am a kind and gentle man. That's who I am. I am. I'm just a nice guy. Like I said, I haven't even threatened anybody in 15 years. Took a couple years, I think,
Mm.
to stop the threatening. I have to ratchet up. I haven't put hands in 21, but I haven't threatened anybody in 15.
Right, 15. And I feel like that's the premise if I would guess on the book Becoming Ken, right? Yeah.
Yes, it's becoming, because so much of it's identity, and what is the self-talk? I speak a lot, and I work with my guys a lot on self-talk. There's always three conversations. You have conversations external. If you believe, you have conversations with God, and then you have conversations internal,
Mm.
which takes precedence. And for most people, it's conversations internal. You can tell me, I always say this, Kenneth, I can tell more about a person's self-esteem by how they take a compliment,
Mm.
by how they take a compliment. Because if they start deprecating or start putting down the oh, no, no, that's not me. Oh, that was, no, I gave you a compliment because that's what my truth is. But it's in opposition with your self-talk, which says, no, I'm not competent. No, I'm not good. No, I'm not worthy. No, I'm not available to be loved. That's your self-talk talking. And so I can tell, if I give a lot of compliments,
Mm.
tell me about a win. Hey, that's great. And I, so anyway, it's just, it's a lot. And that's what I want to do, Kenneth. Why am I on here? Why? Because I want to talk on more stages. I do it for free. I'm going up in 2 days to Anchorage, Alaska, flying on my dollar to speak to SHRM, Society of HR Managers, to talk
Wow.
about ex-offenders coming into the workplace for free. It's
Wow.
cost me a couple thousand because that's my passion. I'm blessed. Financially, I'm blessed. I've done really, really well. That's cool. Now let's move on from that. But I will do that for free. This book, I haven't got a dollar from this book. It cost me 40,000 to write this book because I had 3 ghostwriters. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just being frank because that's what
Yeah, yeah, I
I
believe you, man. 40, yeah, people don't get it, but I believe you.
Oh, but now, believe me, my next 3 books are going to be like probably less than 2 or 3 grand each. But I
Figure that
learned. I
out.
learned. I figured it out,
You
bro.
figure that one out.
And there's a little thing called AI.
There you go.
I'm
Oh
all
man.
over
I
AI.
have some peers of mine, man, that have written books and they probably used AI completely. I don't know how you would do it with Becoming Ken, but I know I had a buddy, he wrote a book in 30 days
Mhm.
and put it out. But it's on a specific
Right.
subject of business to where it's like you could do that, like something to do with marketing or something. I'm like, because I want
I
to
could
write a
write it.
book on what's that?
No, I was going to say I could write a 90-page book in less than 2 days. Good one, a
Yeah.
good one. But
I'll
you
have
got
to talk to you,
to,
man. We'll have to exchange numbers.
yeah,
I would love
yeah,
to pick
no
your
problem,
brain
man.
relative to, because I don't know what I'm doing. I've taken some class, but I don't know what I'm doing. I'm trying. I'm
Just
getting all
holler at
set
me.
up.
Just
I'd
holler at
love
me.
to, man. I'd love to.
Um,
In fact, I will. I planned on it after the show anyhow. So I have a feeling I'd love to. Look, anytime I meet someone like this, both successful or just somebody I enjoy talking to that I see and I respect. They have something I want. They have something about them. I want to lean on. This would be somebody who I would be like, hey man, I would you mentor me? And you have to ask. Not literally in this situation, but I may. But I mean, like in this case, if you see someone like, and I say this because I get a lot of, hey, could you teach me? I'm like, dude, literally, you ask. You ask. Like that's it. I talk about this a lot. It's ironic that you're talking about from your angle, but I talk about it from my angle, which was the value that I've gotten from my mentors and how it's just like changed so much for me in such a short time that I do not believe. I mean, it probably would have happened, but I don't think it would have happened as quickly or the connections I've gotten. And,
mhm.
now I've built around that like a board of advisors and, hiring coaches and things. And that all started just from mentorship. And it's just relationships are powerful, man. That's one of the books I want to write on is specifically just about relationships, more strategic relationships, but just they're so powerful, man. You meet the right person and they can literally change your life.
Oh,
Literally. I mean,
100.
you're out here
Yeah.
trying to introduce your mentees to,
Mhm.
have all these people and man, I just think it's beautiful. And you doing that on your dime, Ken, is beautiful, man. Because I know that's not cheap. I know it isn't. So I know it.
No, it isn't cheap, but it's not expensive either. Yeah, I want you to understand it's not, it's, it's just money, okay,
Mm,
which is fungible. It's just money. And again, if you feel like I don't, maybe I'm a little different. I don't have toys. I don't have toys. Just not a toy guy. And I don't do bling. You hardly ever see me with a tie on. I do have a couple nice suits, but rarely ever see. I just don't. I got my little Audi set 2017. I mean, it's nothing super fancy. But the key thing is that I'd rather give back. I've been so blessed. If if you knew the depths of my depravity, the depths of my pain on the streets, I was not a happy addict, any way, shape, or
mm.
form. Okay, it's in the book. And when before we get off, or just let me know, and I'll shoot you a book, no cost.
Oh
Send
wow,
me an
that's
address,
amazing.
bro, and I'll hand sign it. I do that. Send
Yeah,
out
thank you.
70
Please
of
do.
them.
I was going to say that'd
Yeah,
be amazing.
and I have another meeting, guy, buddy, right now. So
Oh wow.
yeah,
Okay.
it's 2:03.
Well, before we, and I appreciate you being so kind and giving us the full hour, but do at least let us know, A, where we can buy the book, B, where we can find you.
Amazon. Amazon, you can get the book on Amazon.
Becoming Ken.
And yeah, Becoming Ken. And if anybody wants a hand signed and numbered copy, just send me an email at ken at Denali, F as in Frank, S as in Sam, P as in Paul.com. So DenaliFSP.com, Ken. And I'll get out a signed, hand signed one to you. And then if you want to, connect with me, I'm LinkedIn, Ken Miller 84. That's my LinkedIn. I think
Ken
that's my
Miller
call.
84. Beautiful.
Yep.
And we have your QR code as well. This will be on
Mhm.
YouTube.
Mhm.
Ken, I know you have to run, man. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for stopping by. We'll have you back on again. Maybe when
Please
you
do.
release the next books, we'll
Okay.
get you back on. That'd be amazing.
All
Thank
right.
you so much for your time, my brother. Thank you for really stopping by and taking the full hour. We can't wait to see you on next time. God bless and keep doing what you're doing.
Awesome. I appreciate everything. Thank you.